Happy Monday, y'all.
Good morning. It's Monday. It's Carlie's Couch Day.
Carlie's Couch.
This past week has been crazy. And to commemorate that, today we have come up with a topic. I don't really know what we're really going to call this exactly, but what do you do when everything's going wrong? What to do when it feels like shit has hit the fan? What's some other ways to say this?
Politically correct ways or actual ways? Because what do you do when
However,
everything is effed up?
Yeah.
When it's Murphy's Law and you feel like can't get right, like nothing is working out for you or the people in your life.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like that where it just feels like, man, something's wrong, but everything else is cool. So, all right, we're cool. Like, I could deal with it. And sometimes it just feels like everything is messed up. Like, everything all at once. Like, you turn around from one bad news, got some more bad news, then you got some more bad news. And so that's just kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So starting out with that, Carlie, well, have you ever felt like that, first of all? Because there's some people who may not. You know, you always can find the silver lining very quickly. You never felt like overwhelmed, but how does that look for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. So for someone who can see the silver lining, like always, like, I mean, I can always find a silver lining. That doesn't mean I've never felt overwhelmed or ever felt like, good God, something else. Like, right. I've definitely been there. This past week has kind of been one of those for me and apparently everybody in my life. Yeah, it just feels like it's been a tough one. And so I would say like kind of there right now. Like it doesn't mean that things aren't great. It doesn't mean that I'm not grateful to be alive. It doesn't mean any of those things, but it has been a tough week.
Do you want to talk about it or?
I think, I don't want to like put anybody else's things out there, but for everybody in my life who I'm close to that I love, they're all going through their own struggles. And I felt like it happened every time I talked to somebody, they're going through something else and something else. And I'm like, oh my God, like, it's literally everybody in my life.
That's an interesting perspective too, because also if you feel that you are somebody that people come to talk to or vent to, you know, that could be another question as well that parallels how do you cope when it's like everybody's kind of coming to you with, you know, things that are going on with them, and does that affect you as well, or do you think it affects you the same?
I feel like I take on a lot more people's stuff than I should, and that they even ask me to. Like, nobody's asking me to hold their stuff for them, and so that's a lesson in learning, like, not to be codependent, but still learning how to be there for people. And so instead of trying to solve their problems, I say, hey, like, if you need help, let me know, and I got you. Which is hard for me because I'm like, well, I want them to want my help, but why do I want that? Like, why is that a thing? So there's a lot of self-growth through all of this, but I think it makes it harder is because, like, not only am I going through my own stuff, but then the people that I love are struggling, and I hate to see people that I love hurting or upset. Like, it just makes it worse for me. Yeah.
Well,
how about you?
I don't think I've always been able to see the silver lining, or maybe not always quickly. That's definitely something that as I grow, I've learned to do that, and learned better how to deal with things when they happen that are negative. But I definitely have felt like everything is just going wrong all at once. And for me, very recently, too, which is why we kind of came up with this question and very easily was like, yep, we could talk about that. Because for me, it's been like compounding like over months, like particular situation, like going back and forth. And then that kind of domino affects other things in my life. And so it's just like, man, I think like I got to a point where, I don't even ever really say this much, but like I really felt like defeated, like damn, like I'm just done, like I don't even want to try. And I asked myself and I challenged myself, so maybe this is part of that process of, you know, getting through it, and maybe this does show the growth of quickly trying to process it in the first place. But I did, as soon as I started feeling like that, I asked myself like, all right, so what are you supposed to do now? You know, when you feel like there's literally nothing I can do, but what can you do? What do you do? And so that made me think of steps. And I actually was going to start writing a blog about this. And I started to do an outline and then decided we could talk about this for the episode. So when you're going through that feeling of like, man, you're feeling down or like everything's crazy. Yeah. How do you know that? Like, how does that make you feel? Because it's probably different in different people.
It kind of depends on what's going on. Like different things kind of hit a little bit different and affect me in different ways. But I know like when I start to feel like, oh, everything's going wrong, or I start feeling overwhelmed, like I notice that things that wouldn't normally bother me do. Like I start getting a lot more sensitive to things, or like, cause me and all my friends are trolls. Like we tease each other, and I might be like, take something real personal. I'm like, Carlie, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So I get more sensitive. I also get more emotional. I just notice like my emotional reaction to things is like, I stub my toe and it's the end of the world, which sometimes it can be, but I'm so dramatic. And I'm like looking at myself like, girl, what is going on in your world?
When we kind of start feeling like a victim, it's almost like you keep wanting to be more and more
of a victim. Oh, exactly.
It's weird.
It's a domino effect, it's like so you said. But like once you feel like a victim, and once you like, if you subconsciously own that, like I didn't even say I'm gonna feel like a victim, right? But you start feeling like, man, and that dude cut me off on a highway, and then that chick was so rude to me at Starbucks, and then you're like, pause.
Yeah, you kind of catch it.
Hold on. So I feel like for me, being more sensitive, not being able to bounce back from things as quickly, like something that normally like hit me, I just keep striding, like I stumble over, like things like that. That's when I start to notice my equilibrium's off. What does that look like for you?
I didn't even think about the emotional parts of it, like you just said, but for me, you're right. That's the one of the days that I know, like from on Twitter, and like everything's like annoying me a little bit more, you know, like, or aggravating me a little bit more, or things that people are saying to me when they're just asking like a regular question, or it's just regular. Yeah. I'm a little bit more of an asshole, I think. Like I get a little bit more short, and things bother me that shouldn't bother me. So a little bit of that too. What I put down is that it makes zero sense. It makes no sense. But the moments I start feeling like everything's wrong, or that things aren't going well or going right, I stop doing things. Like I avoid it even more. So like I'll be even more lazy and like just binge watch something on Netflix, or just lay around, and if my computer's beside me, I feel like, okay, it's close enough where I feel like, yeah, I'm gonna do some work at some point, and then I don't, and then I say I'll do it tomorrow. And I get way more reclusive too. Like I don't go around people as much. Like I'll just stay in the crib, chill, or even like talking to people. Like people could text me, and I don't feel like having a conversation, so I just won't respond. So that's how I notice like I deal with it.
Yeah, and actually, like I feel like those are very similar to how I am, like with actions. Like because normally I'm like good at responding to texts, especially to people that I'm close to. But even with them, like if they call and I'm like looking at my phone, like not today.
It's like all of a sudden you feel like, this is not a priority. And it's not in a bad way, because it can even be a close friend. Like, even if you hit me about something, I'm just like, if I can't think about that right now, or like I'm just not in the space for that, sometimes you just don't feel like going through that right there. But I feel like it's priorities of when you feel like there's other things you have to deal with, that's kind of just like the top thing that's taking up all your space in your mind.
And I feel like what makes it even worse for me is that I start to feel even worse because I'm not responding, because I'm not replying, because I'm not being there for people who, you know, I normally am. So it's like a self-sabotage even more so. So
it
it's
really
like,
spirals.
Oh, my day's effed up, so let me just keep on making it worse.
But why? I wonder why. Like, mentally, does it feel better to just be like letting things happen to you, or to like just feel like, you know what, fine, I'll just not try?
I don't know if it's better, but I think it's easier. And when I say that, like, misery loves company. And it was so much easier to be a victim and to, like, let life happen to you than to own it. Like, own your part, like, process it and, like, work through, like, your emotions and your trauma and things, and then take action. Like, those are so many more steps than just to lay in my bed and not do anything.
But then you're still putting off something that you have to do anyway.
For sure.
I guess it's the same as procrastination. Like, and maybe for me, that's kind of the same symptoms of it that I would have. Like, if I'm procrastinating for something, or if I'm just feeling like things are just not working out or whatever, I'm probably doing the same type of thing where I'm like just avoiding everything. So that's obviously not healthy, because it gets worse. So as you kind of learn to process, like, okay, this is not what's up, I'm really just kind of feeling worse. Whether it's immediately when you start feeling like everything's going wrong, or, you know, after it's been a couple of days, if you've just been in a slump or whatever, how can you actually snap out of that? Like, what are some things you've actually done, or some things you can do? Like we said, we've been asking ourselves this question, like, basically this week. So for me, like, I literally thought about, like, all right, if I was talking to somebody about this, because I'm kind of solution oriented with my convos anyway, like what types of things do I know they would say, you know, and like what things would I even say to somebody else? And then it's like, Lex, so why don't you actually do this? So even when we're talking about things like this, like we're both like sitting here like going through it with our lives, and we're both like, okay, we talk about these things on the show, we talk about these things in our lives, like with Holistically Dope, whatever else. And so how do we actually do them? So what are things that you've been trying to do or have done or are working?
So like I said, different things kind of hit different. And so whenever I'm feeling a lot of anxiety or really just down on myself, like one thing I do is I walk. So like if I feel like I can't do anything else, like the world is crumbling down and like I can't do anything else, I can walk. And that's great because it's like sunshine, there's fresh air. You get to start walking, maybe listen to a podcast or a sermon or some music or nothing and just walk. And so like I'll pick a destination. Like I actually did that this week. I picked a coffee shop that I'd never been to that's like a mile away from my house. I was like, all right, we getting dressed. Like get your ass dressed. We going outside. We gonna walk there. And by the time I got there, I felt so much better. Just that little bit of thing. And I always bring like a little notebook because I don't know why I can't travel without notebooks. But I was there and just had such a fresh like perspective, just getting out of my house, just getting out of that space, because like energy in motion stays in motion, energy at rest stays at rest. So if you're having a bad day, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I'm not saying don't process it and don't deal with it, but if you literally sit on your couch all day, it's just going to stay there and get heavier and heavier and heavier.
Like festers in you.
Yeah. And so I'll do that whenever it's other things that might be stressing me out, if that's like making ends meet or this new contract I'm trying to get or these whatever like life things, I work out. And yeah, because it's if I can get my body to the point where I get all my anger, aggression, stress, like just out either on weights or I'm running or whatever, like that helps me process, and you get endorphins. But those are two of the physical things. I think when I'm not moving my body, like I meditate, because you can literally just lay in your bed like face down and just turn on your little meditation app and just lay there and meditate and breathe. So I meditate and breathe.
I have meditate and breathing on my list as well, because I feel like when you're at a point of feeling anxious, or if it's at that point where you're really like, you physically kind of feel like your chest may be pounding, or, you know, you're just like breathing heavily, or you just feel like a lot of adrenaline, to just stop and breathe is very helpful. But I've also tried to meditate sometimes when I'm super anxious, and instead of helping me, it almost makes me like think more about it because I'm trying to focus on something. So I feel like sometimes it's still kind of hard for me too.
It is, and if I'm
like sometimes
angry,
it doesn't really work or
if I'm irritated or angry, meditating makes me angry. Like I can't. I'm like shut up, like
because it's like you're just kind of focusing still on that thing.
And that's why, like, if it's aggressive, like I need to do something where I'm moving. But if it's something where I'm sad, like maybe that will be better. I think there's just a lot of different things that I do depending on what it is. What are some of your other ones in addition to like meditation and breathing?
My first thing that I wrote down was mindset, which probably kind of goes into like right before kind of what you're saying about like getting out, getting fresh air, because you have to make a decision before you're really like doing that. That's right. True. And so if I catch myself saying like, man, like this is terrible, all these things are terrible, all this stuff is going wrong, what's gonna happen next, it's not gonna work out. If I catch myself saying things like that, I feel like at some point I can kind of I'll catch it and I'll just stop. And a lot of times, like for me, like I'm always in the house, so I'll like look outside or on the balcony, and then I always like feel good when I'm looking out into the sky and outside into fresh air or the rain as of late in LA. But just kind of looking out, then I start thinking about like, man, I love, you know, this fresh air. I love my place that I live in. And, you know, I start to think about perspective, and I start to think about, all right, like I still have to figure out, like, am I going to just sit here and whine and bitch about this, or am I going to do something, or like, what can I do? And so just like stopping just to try to have the mind switch, even though it's still like you're going to be thinking about it. And you still have the issue, right? So that's one thing. A lot of times we see all this Instagram motivation and all these things about, you know, change your mind, change your life, and all these things. Like it doesn't mean like stuff just happens just because you start thinking about the good. Like you still have to figure out how to fix your issues if it's on you. Some things aren't on you. So there's still other parts of the process, but for me, that's the first step. And then it goes into like meditating and like, all right, calming myself down. I think a walk is a great idea. I don't do that enough, but I do walk a lot. Actually, no, I take that back because I
Yeah.
walk to the gym every other day when I go to the gym.
Nice.
And
You've been killing it lately.
And working out feels good too, because more so for me, I guess getting out the aggression too, but also just like it's a small win for me. So the consistency of being there and going, it's like, all right, there are things you can control. There's things that are going well. There's things that I am doing, or there's things, I can trust myself because I said I would do this and I'm doing it. So that's helpful too. And just overall, I think finding small wins. So like when you're trying to reset your mindset, like how do you think of like those positive things, or what you should be doing to kind of like get out of a rut?
I have said this before, but it's different. I think if you're so stuck in your head that like you can't break through, like you feel like it's just incessant thoughts and things that are happening, there's this meditation technique, which is not actually meditating, but to bring you back. It's actually probably a therapy technique now that I think about it, but to bring you back to this space. If you're so stuck in your head and you're just like, what if this and this and this and I suck, or whatever is happening with the negative mental chatter, if you look around the room or wherever you are and start looking at things and like stating the object and the colors, so like black couch, like tan wall, green tree, white shade, like you physically bring your body back, so it makes your mind stop. Yeah, so you bring yourself back to the present moment, and then that kind of gives you a chance to breathe. And just to take a second and be like, okay, I'm alive. I'm in this space. These things aren't killing me. Like I'm just stressing myself out right now. And then that kind of helps you clear your head. And that's either like, that's an extreme, like if I just can't get out of my own head. But otherwise, I'll take a couple deep breaths and just start thinking and start examining those thoughts that are coming into my head. So if it's, I'm not going to make it, I can't do this, I'm defeated. Like I start thinking about those. If I have a journal, I'll write them down. And then start examining them. Like, well, am I really defeated? No, because I'm still alive. Like that would be the ultimate defeat. Like I just be done, but I'm not. I'm here. And I'm never going to make it. Okay, well, that's happened. I've been through worse. That doesn't mean I want to go through it, but my track record is pretty damn good when it comes to getting through this stuff. And then you start to put all of these thoughts like on trial, essentially. And so that kind of helps me get back to the space.
So 2 things based on what you just said. I had never heard about the literally stating the things around you. That's a really good method because as far as staying in the present moment, other things that people can do are if they set some type of like reminder in their mind, like every time I walk through a doorway, or like even through some of the apps, they can set like a bell every 5 hours or something, like, random stuff.
Yeah.
But it's always about making sure that you're not getting lost in like a past moment, a future moment that hasn't even happened, and like paying attention to what's going on. Again, not in that, oh, just think about this moment so I don't have to do anything for my future, because it doesn't really work like that either. And I found myself thinking about that before too. I'm like, oh, present moment. But it's like, bitch, you still got to do your work.
I was like, people use that as an excuse a lot of times to not have to do stuff.
Let me do what I need to do. So you can abuse that. You can abuse everything. But to the second thing you said, which was, what's the last thing you said?
Putting stuff on trial, like writing stuff down, writing down your negative thoughts and thinking through.
Dang, it was something similar to that, but I can't recall my thought anymore. So we're going to have to let that go too.
Well, I'll come back to, you said something
like
about
meditation.
About worrying is a down payment on something that might not ever happen. And so thinking about it, like if y'all put a down payment on a car that you might not get, you would be pissed.
Right.
And so thinking about worrying is like time that you're spending on something that might not ever come to fruition and is actually making you feel worse.
And I remembered my thought just now. I was going to say with the check your track record. Yeah. That is one thing that really helps bring me back, because anytime I feel like, dang, I ain't gonna make it this time, like this would have got me, like I am out of here,
this is beyond me,
bro. When it gets to that point, it's always like, okay, how many things have you been through and you're still here, like everything's still fine, like you've gone through so many things, so why would you not like continue to make it through? So always thinking about that is like, yo, it's whatever, it's nothing, like we have the resources, we have people. And speaking of people, like your support group or your friends can be helpful. I feel like I wrote that though, and I'm not sure how I really would apply that to me, because like I said, I think I tend to get very reclusive. Like because that doesn't sound all the way right. And maybe I might be wrong, but like a lot of times I feel like my friends can't help me. Or if you can't technically, like, with whatever it is I need right
with
then.
a solution.
Yeah, like, if you can't help me, bless you. I feel
you.
like, well, why waste your energy and not even just wasting that, but, like, both of ours. Like, why, why have all this conversation or whatever? Because I don't necessarily need to vent. Sometimes I do, but then I also find myself only wanting to vent to maybe, like, one or two people or something like that, if I do. And then I always feel bad. So now I'm like probably getting into some other issues. Like I always feel bad because then they hit me with the same solutions. I'm like, I already know, So like, I'm like, what's the point of talking about it?
For someone who talks about it a lot, and has a lot of people talk to me, that I'm grateful for. Y'all, I love you. Keep venting to me if you do. And I'll keep holding space because I love that. But I think sometimes when we get so deep into our own heads, like, that you can't physically solve it, and I can't physically solve your problem, but I can remind you of your wins. Or I can just listen and hold space and let you know you're not alone. Like it serves a purpose, but I definitely always ask my friends, like, do you want advice? Or do you already know what to do? You're just not doing it. Like, what do you need in this moment? Because you always know what you need. Like that's a thing.
I think maybe I need to do an experiment to see if it's helpful to vent, because I just don't like and then nothing against like you and not as a you to anybody specific, but like I feel like there's nothing that somebody's going to tell me that I don't already kind of know it for certain types of things. Like I know what it is, but yet it still feels like it's inside of me. So maybe I do need to practice just like talking about it just to see. But then sometimes I get aggravated when people like tell me things or give me advice when that's not what I want either. So I guess that goes where like people like you, or where you ask like, all right, what are you trying to get to right now? So I have to practice that.
It's hard for me to vent too, though. Like, I'm not acting like it's easy. Because first of all, I'm like, well, I don't want to call and spread negative energy to your day because I'm having a bad day and bad vibes. Or I don't want to do this, but I reach out when I know that I need to. So I don't vent about things probably as often as I should, but I also don't necessarily think that it's always productive to call somebody and be like, oh my God, my day was so horrible and this I don't do that, because I also
you
don't
do feel like you're kind of a burden
on
somebody else, I think, when you're just calling to vent.
Yeah.
Or because especially if you're one of those people that people call, you know how it feels for everybody to be like hitting you with their issues. So it's like, dang, I ain't trying to make nobody else feel like that right now.
Exactly. And so it's very selective, but it's mostly not even a vent thing. It's, hey, I'm really feeling like this and I'm struggling with it. And a lot of times they'll remind me of my wins, or, just kind of reminding me who I am in the moment, or that they're there and they support me. And I'm like, damn, if all these dope people in my life are here for me, like, shit, I must be like, all right.
Right. No, that is what it is. It's a lot of reminding yourself like who you are and what you're like striving to be as well. And like staying on the path and like keep going.
It is. And I think that comes down to like taking those actions. Like that we need, like seeing what you can control and stop trying to control things that you can't, and stop worrying about things that you can't control. And I'm just preaching to myself here.
Other people especially, that's the first thing. You just drop that from your list, period.
Because that's a no. That's a hard no. Like, you can't control anybody else, their thoughts, their opinions. You can't control how they're going to speak something or take something, but that shouldn't stop you from speaking your truth.
And so that's why focusing, like when Ace was on the show, ever since then, like he talked about how going to the gym helps him recognize where he has control in his life over his body. I always think about that now, and it does make it very much easier to like make sure you go work out or be regular or stick to whatever you say you want to stick to, because I have complete control over this, like not complete, like if something happens on the way there, God forbid, or whatever, but like I have the control to like make that thing happen. So let me make it happen. When I'm feeling down, there may be, all right, what's the easiest task? Like I might be behind on my to-do list, but like what's the easiest thing I can like just to start getting stuff done? Yeah, because when things starts getting done, you get in a little groove. And for me, I think action has always breeded action. So it's just that initial getting out of it, like doing that first thing to like really get going. Yeah,
and that's, you got to figure out what that is for you. And at different times it could look very different.
That's why people always clean their room when you get stressed out. Just like how you go for a walk. Yeah, you go for walks, or you start cleaning up your crib because you're like, everything's just out of place. I just need to clean up. And then I'm gonna get to work. And then I clean up, and then I'll be like, all right, well, everything's nice and fresh. It feels like a fresh slate. You can do things. But we've said this before too, but like when things are messy around you, that's when you know like you're just like disheveled and you just need to get some order. And again, so that's like the wins you start to get, and then you feel better too.
Yeah. And it's resetting, giving you what you can,
Reset.
and controlling what you can control. And also, I just want to say, not beating yourself up if it takes you longer to process things. Like, as long as you're doing the work or trying to do the work or are working on doing the work, like, it doesn't have to look like anybody else's journey. It doesn't have to be any particular thing. You just have to do what's best for you and know that that's enough.
But sometimes I also feel like, and I guess I can only speak for myself in my case, where you feel like you're more self-aware, and you know how we're talking about understanding your mindset and then thinking about the changes you need to make and plan, blah, blah, blah. I also feel like sometimes I can talk to myself too much about it, you know? Like I'm going too back and forth the thinking and, what about this and then this, or why am I doing this? And that can almost turn into a procrastination as well.
Oh, that's
so like,
for sure.
So sometimes it's like you're sitting around processing, even the processing it could sometimes be like, all right, girl, just go do what you gotta do. Like, it's so funny to me. I think sometimes like I just get too in the funnel with anything. Like too much of anything is gonna be too much. Yeah. So it's like, all right, you done enough talking. You done journaled about it for 10 days in a row. Like, what are we doing?
So what you gonna do?
Right. What we gotta do?
I be talking to myself a lot, y'all. So I be having those conversations. All right, fam. So what's up?
So take responsibility. That's another thing on my list. Taking responsibility for me is not being a victim, or not, changing that mindset. So I'm not making myself in the victim role. Responsibility in that, like with my issue, like, all right, maybe I could have called them, a month ago to check and make sure like all my paperwork was together before now some crazy stuff happens, or like what things could I have done or could have been smoother on my part so that I wouldn't be in a situation like this again. And sometimes it is okay to, kind of overassess, like, all right, you can't be responsible for what other people do, but like I could have checked in on you more, or like whatever you need to do, like still make sure you're going to be straight. So then you look at the lessons, the responsibilities that you can take from, whatever's going wrong, and still try to implement like something different in the future.
But it's just owning what you can do in this moment. That's like not worrying about what you can't control, but owning everything that you can and just taking your part in that. So we talked about things that happen after and during, whenever you feel overwhelmed or when it feels like everything is going wrong. But are there things we can do to help prevent it or to keep ourselves from getting in that position?
Have you ever been at a point where you were like, yo, I never want to feel like this again?
Yes.
That was easy. Yo, I have in my phone, in my notes, true story. Like, I think one's like 2012. Like, it's random notes in my phone that are like, they are crazy stories. Like, one of them is called 7:47 a.m. on the metro when I lived in DC, and it was just Drake. Me. It really was. It was me writing notes on the metro, headed to take the foreign service exam, and like I just started writing out all these crazy things that are happening all at once. It was so wild. And when I look at it now, I'm like, damn, that was crazy. My life was crazy. Like. And then I keep flipping through and I'm like, oh, 3 years later, I still had like, oh, this one was crazy too. And like, oh, 3 years later, damn, shit's still crazy. Damn, this week, shit's still crazy. So it's like, it's always like, whoa, we have so many crazy stories in our lives. And I've like gone through something so many times, and it's like, all right, at what point do you stop and really pay attention to, yes, I can prevent this from happening again. Like, so getting to that moment where you're like, I never want to feel like this again. Okay, why am I here? And like literally what steps can I make? So like really making a plan from that. When you're not, everything's not terrible, trying to make sure you don't forget like the lessons you were supposed to have learned. Because it's easy when you get like high, like when the money finally does come in or whatever. Yeah, and you're like, oh, I'm all hype, I'm gonna just spend act crazy again. Like, no, we gotta do something different this time. So really owning that, I think, is helpful to prevent yourself from being in the same cycles over and over with relationships, with your money, with whatever.
Bruh, I was thinking about all those things. It reminds me of that GIF. It's like, bet you're wondering how I got here.
Oh man, I have so many notes about that. Like, so I don't know how I'm gonna get home right now, but like, this is what we gonna do. Like, this is how I'm gonna figure it out.
Fam, and I have crazy notes in my phone too. I'm just like, what first of all, was I going through? Good God. But I mean, looking at those patterns and realizing that, one, if it's always something else or somebody else in your life, but it's the same pattern, it's you, fam. Sorry, just gonna hate to break it to you, but it's you. If the first day you get your paycheck, you eating lobster, and the day before you get next pay,
fam, chill. you gotta get that good meal the first day, bro.
I mean, no, I enjoy that, but
the first day you gotta get the crab.
But
legs.
if you ain't got enough money to eat for the rest of those 2 weeks or whatever, that's your fam. Come on, we gotta do better.
God gonna provide.
Gas tank on E, but our drinks on me.
Ooh, triggered. All right, well.
But so
now that I'm completely triggered,
let me just continue with my preventative measures.
I'm gonna get my crab legs. That's
I mean,
all
me
say.
too. But you just got to make sure you can eat the rest of the 2 weeks.
You're right. Exactly.
So instead of getting 4 pounds of crab legs, maybe you get 1.5.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're completely
right.
At
that. But I feel like also if I get myself into a routine, so with you working out, like if I have things that help me like stay feeling good and staying centered, if I'm stretching and meditating every day and breathing and journaling, if I'm following up, with friends and on contracts and with emails, if I'm working out consistently, like if I am on top of all of those things, it's a whole lot harder to knock me off my center because I'm centered and I'm good and I'm feeling good.
That's the goal, is to find like that centeredness in whatever situation and trying to maintain that.
Yeah, and that's when I know like stuff is not right, when I'm not centered, when I'm not doing those things to take care of myself in the way that I know I need to be taken care of and taking full ownership for that. Like that, so I'm like, okay, I got to do better.
So making decisions, taking action, getting your small wins, have tough conversations. Sometimes that's a thing too. Not avoiding, not procrastinating, action.
Triggered.
At the end of the day, it's action. So yeah, hopefully this week will be a lot better than the last week.
We're gonna claim it. It will be better.
This will be a good week. Hopefully it's a good week for all of you too. And also, it's important to understand that like everything is not all roses for people. And yet, that still doesn't mean we're walking around like crying and frowning necessarily either. So, be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, and be kind to others that you come in contact with, because you do not know what other people are dealing with as well. So I think it's when you're going through stuff, it's like, man, you got to figure that out. But it's also an opportunity to, be empathetic to others too. And sometimes actually working with other people or helping with other people is a good way to also get yourself back into perspective. So yeah, we're going to keep working on these things, I'm sure, over the next week and further after that, probably
in life. But screenshot, let us know how you deal with when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you don't know what to do, maybe you're feeling anxious. Like, what are some things that you do or have done to get you out of that like ebb and flow of everything going wrong? Screenshot #Carlie's Couch at Carlie's Couch, because now we have an Instagram and a Twitter. Also sign up for our newsletter, because we be sending some good newsletters.
Right. Every week we're going to let you know what's going on. Carlie, you have a shout out for today?
You're not going to sing?
No. Maybe on the question.
She doesn't sing on command.
I did just a second ago. Dang. No appreciation out here. Barely. I hit barely a note.
In talking about giving back to the community, I want to give a shout out, but also an opportunity. If you have kids and you live in Los Angeles, Change the Tune is a nonprofit using food, music, and community to build systems of equity and give back, social emotional learning, art, and there is a free 99 after school program for your kids every Tuesday and Thursday from 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. at Hot and Cool Cafe in Lamert Park. At Hot and Cool, the organization is Change the Tune. And if your kids are, I think that's 8 to 14. So like end of cool. Elementary school, middle school, we do some dope stuff. We had them pitching businesses last week and building products. They made slime. They start cooking this week. So if you're trying to get your kids to learn how to cook, come through. Check them out on Instagram at Change the Tune. And then their website is changetune.org, ran by my homegirl, Charlie Kemp, who is super dope and using her experience and background to give back. So check it out.
Is it something you have to register for online or something?
You can show up. You can show up. We have a sign-in sheet and all that, your information, and you can stay and hang out with us if you're a parent and want to see what it's about. Feel free to stay and hang out and cook with us. And if not, 3:30 to 5:30, you can get your little 2 hours of time. Do what you need to do.
Okay, cool. And our question of the week for this week is: do I realize how tough and strong I am capable of being?
Do you?
Yes, I do. I actually really asked myself this question. I don't know how long ago it was, but I thought about it when notice other people, like if they have little breakdowns and stuff. And I'm like, man, I've gone through crazier stuff than that. Like maybe I need to give myself more credit, for like what I can deal with or the grit that I have. So I am thankful that, I don't know, sometimes I think about the like, why do we have to go through so much crap, and like, why is that something to be proud of? Like, oh, I'm so tough. Like, dang, why can't things just be like smooth, and go nicely? But regardless, you are able to get through certain situations. And like we said earlier in the show, you just continue with that mindset of realizing like you can get through it. So you just keep moving.
I think it's interesting when I think about like how tough and strong I'm capable of being. Like I be forgetting that I've been through so much stuff until I really sit. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's definitely a thing. But I think I notice it the most whenever I'm going through stuff, and it's a reminder, like to talk about my track record. Like, girl, you've been through way more than this. Like, let's just get it together. Like, do what you need to do to make your stuff happen. But also celebrating my strength and realizing that my worth is also not tied into it. So like my worth is not, my worth and my value are not tied into how much stuff I've been through, or we're like pulling out war wounds. Wow, this happened to me. Like I don't care about none of that. I'm just glad that we're here. Yeah. And better.
That's a good point. That's a good point to end it on as well. So thank you for listening today. We hope you have a great week. We will, and share with us your stories, your tips, whatever you got for us. # or @Carlie's Couch.
Happy Monday.